Hello, everybody, and welcome to yet another edition of the Middle Georgia Spotlight. I'm your host, Jack Ellis. Thank you so much for being with us. We're glad to have you with us every week here at WMUB on the Middle Georgia Spotlight. All of our guests are important, but today we have a very special guest running for the top position, the mayor of Warner Robins, Georgia, the international city. It's the first time out, so she's doing just as the Air Force say there in Warner Robins. She's aiming high. None other than Mrs. LaRhonda Patrick. Welcome to our program.
Thank you so much, Mayor Ellis, for having me.
Well, as I said, this is your first political run, I understand?
Yes, sir, it is.
So you didn't mess around. You went right to the top. So did I. So did I, by the way. When I didn't hold a city council position, I went and became mayor, so congratulations.
Thank you.
Now, of course, that's, people would say, you have some nerve, if you will. But your vision, you're in this because of what reason?
Well, I can tell you that what I have is some courage. I definitely did not intend on running for mayor. I intend on running for city council. So I'll tell you that story. But to answer your question, why am I running? I'm running because what I learned back in 2005 when I worked at the General Assembly, that there's games sometimes that's played with our lives when it comes to making laws of our state, and I wanted to make a difference when it came to that. And I realized throughout my education and as I grew as an adult that municipal law is what affects us most. So the local government is what affects us most, and the things going on in Warner Robins made me say, well, you know, maybe now is a time I need to run for politics. And the fact that Warner Robins is going to be my forever home. My husband and I are raising our son there, and we want to make sure our city is a place that we want to stay long term. So instead of complaining and being complacent about the things going on in Warner Robins, I decided to be the change I want to see.
You mentioned law. Now, you are a lawyer by training, and you practice law on a daily basis, I understand.
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Okay, so you bring that experience. What's your vision for the city? You know, Warner Robins has been growing. Houston County has been growing, has exceeded Bibb County, if you will. Warner Robins, of course, is the largest city in Houston County. What's your vision for Warner Robins? What will we see at the end of a 4-year period of a Mayor Patrick, or what will we see transpiring during that 4 years? Well,
what you will see is a city that looks as it is described. You mentioned we are the largest city in Houston County, which is true, but we operate as if we're one of the smallest cities in Middle Georgia, if you ask me. There's a lot of missed opportunities that go to surrounding cities that we don't partake of, mainly because we don't think with the future in mind, in my opinion. So I'm looking forward to all of us enjoying some things, some values that you have in Macon, for example, like a real downtown area where you can have the live, work, play communities, mom and pop shops, green space to have different community events, a place that's senior friendly, pet friendly, bike friendly, for example. Also a city that brings in new investment, that attracts new investments inside our community. I'm sure you can attest that oftentimes Warner Robins gets looked over when it comes to new industry coming to the Middle Georgia area. Macon, which is wonderful, they get a lot of that business. There has been some that comes to Warner Robins, but they'll change their mind because of something and they go elsewhere. So my vision is having a city that has a lot of innovation, industry, and involvement, and we actually look as we are described and not just operating like a small city. We have the space, we have the demand, we have the untapped potential, and it's time for us to start moving forward instead of being in the same place we were when I was in middle school.
Now, some people would say, I'm not one of them, would say that you have all the industry that you need. You have Robins Air Force Base, one of the largest payrolls in the state of Georgia, notwithstanding Delta Airline and Coca-Cola,
yes,
Robins
sir.
Air Force Base. So what would you say to that? You're talking about you want to diversify the economy that you have and not be as dependent on the base, but we know the base is the big, if you will, the 800-pound gorilla in middle Georgia.
It absolutely is. Robins Air Force Base, I'm a military supporter. I always support our troops, and thank you again for your service and your sacrifice, Mayor Ellis. But we need more career jobs for our youth that comes through our education system in Houston County. Many of them, my classmates and even the ones younger than me, they'll come through our school systems, they'll graduate, go off and get an education, and they don't have many career options when they come back. Robins Air Force Base is wonderful. We have people coming from all over the world to work there. But many people that come through our school system, they just don't have a clean ticket to work at Robins Air Force Base, especially if you don't do service first. A lot of civilians that were prior military work at Robins. So we want to have more options as far as career jobs for our youth. So we want some headquarters there. We want some jobs other than restaurants and gas stations. Warner Robins has lots of both of those, in addition to just having Robins Air Force Base.
Well, let me, first of all, I'm remiss for not congratulating you because people know that you're in a runoff, that you contested with other men, maybe women, I don't know, but I know with 2 other men you contested with, and you've made the runoff, separated by 97 votes, which is quite an accomplishment in and of itself, running against an incumbent. For an 8-year incumbent. So you separated by 97 votes, so now we're in a runoff, and this runoff, this program will air the week before your election. So the election is on November
30th.
November 30th.
Yes, sir.
And of course, at that time, we've had the early voting in that. What type of turnout do you expect in the runoff? Historically, people say runoffs are low. Doesn't have to be that way. I would tell you, I've participated in one that you can get the numbers up, even in the runoff. But what are you doing on a daily basis, you and your team, to ensure that you dispel that myth that the runoff is going to be lower than, turnout will be lower than the election itself?
Well, I will tell you something, in being completely transparent. I think I shocked a lot of people for me to even have gotten the numbers we got in the first election. So this time around, I have a lot more help. More people are willing to put themselves out there for this campaign. So I'm having a lot of boots on the ground this time. I didn't have a street team before. Any street team stuff was done by me, my husband, my son who's 4, he helped too, and I have a friend and a brother and an auntie that helped sometimes. But we didn't have a strong foot
That's
team.
amazing.
We didn't have a street team. A lot of things that I was hoping to have, I couldn't afford to get those things. My campaign didn't have a lot of funds.
But money will come when you get in the runoff, though. Money comes easy.
Well, money has come now, so that's why I'm able to have all the things I didn't have before. So we're having the street team now, knocking on doors, getting the door hangers out. I'm doing commercials on TV. I'll have commercials that's running on TV. So that's a big difference. Having someone else to run my social media that lives locally that can get more engaged and more interaction. So those are 3 things that we're doing different this time.
But your vision remains the same. What you're saying, you'll just be able to communicate that vision probably more successfully, if you will, using the different platforms that's available to your media.
Yes, sir.
Forth. But that speaks volumes that you can have such a small team and still come within 97 votes, so you got to feel good about your position, but you always run scared in politics. You always look over your shoulder until every vote's counted. But I'm sure you're feeling good about your position. But speaking of your position, what are the main issues facing? We know what your vision, your long-term vision, you mentioned that what you hope to see at the end of 4 years, but what are the things that you're going to have to grapple with right away in Warner Robins? Is it garbage? Is it law enforcement? Is it finances that you see on the outside looking in that needs some immediate attention?
Well, the recent news story about the $800,000 tax lien Warner Robins has.
800,000 gorillas, that's one.
Yes, exactly.
Now, well, what about this 800,000? I heard about it vaguely.
Well, the city of Warner Robins, for the first time in our history, we have a tax lien by the IRS in the amount of $800,000 due to not paying all of our taxes for the past 5 years. So it was a big blow to our community, a disappointment as well. But we're going to rebound. We're going to, develop a plan so we can bounce back and lessen the blow as much as possible to the constituents, which I am. So that's going to be one of the number one things we have to do, deal with this lien. How is this going to affect our bond ratings when we get ready to build infrastructure in our city? How much are the taxpayers going to have to absorb when it comes to money for things like that? In addition to that, we have 15 lawsuits right now against the city. That's a record number for our city. It's a record number for many cities in our state to have that amount of lawsuits against us that are still open and pending that we're going to have to deal with. So those are two very big issues that hurts our finances tremendously. One of them I knew, the lawsuits. The other one, I don't think many of us did not know that would be an issue. So those are the two things I'm going to jump in there and have to work out.
Yeah. Well, crime has been on everyone's mind, not only here in Macon and Middle Georgia, but throughout the nation. So we have to admit that crime is up in the last. But in Warner Robins, you have the police department, which reports to the mayor, the chief of police, hired by the mayor, and of course the mayor is in charge of the day-to-day operation of the city. But in terms of crime, in terms of your law enforcement operation, as you look at it now, are you satisfied that you have the size force that you need to deal with the challenges that's about dealing with crime in the city?
Well, I'll say that I back the blue. So I'm big on my military. I'm big on my public safety, my police officers, and the firemen. I work with them as a solicitor, so we have a very strong working relationship in the city for which I work. So I understand and I appreciate their job, and I know how difficult it is. But for the city of Warner Robins, we need to probably look at adjusting some things so that we can start bringing our crime rate back down to where it used to be. Over the past 8 years, it's increased, and we have a record high of our crime right now. So there's some things that I'd like to work with the police department on making sure we're adjusting to match with the change we're seeing in our community. And it may involve adding more police officers. It may involve moving some people around and doing some things like training and some different types of policing and also education.
So you're going to come in with an open mind, but listening, but having ideas of where you want to go.
Yes, sir. I'd be bringing some new, fresh ideas to some things that we may be able to do together to help progress our city and help correct that crime issue we're seeing right now.
In case you're just joining us, we're talking with Mrs. LaRhonda Patrick, who is running for mayor of Warner Robins. She's in the runoff. She failed not failed, but came within 97 votes. Winning this thing, 98 votes, I guess, winning this thing outright, and now the runoff is on the 30th. Now, you mentioned that you're a lawyer. We'd like to know, we heard about your vision. We'd like to know a little bit about you. Where did you go to law school?
I went to law school at North Carolina Central University in Durham, North Carolina.
You know who went to that law school?
Who?
Maynard Jackson, the first African-American mayor and my mentor.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he mentored me, and he was a graduate of North Carolina Central University. Good law school, by the way. What about undergrad?
Georgia State University.
Georgia State.
Yes,
and
sir.
high school?
Northside High School.
Northside.
Yes, Northside.
Are they in the run? Are they in the playoffs?
Last I checked, we were.
Okay. Well, I know you've had a great Warner Robins. You have to have a little play too in this and politics. You have to go to the games and things of that nature.
Yes.
So keep contact with that. But I know you've had a great sports team down there over the years. And I was and to my dismay, to be honest with you, of course, you would be the first African American, male or female, to hold the position of mayor, should you be successful. And I know that you are not measuring curtains yet in the office, but you're running to win. You're in it to win it. You're not
That's
just
right.
making a statement. But I say that, it brings me to, it kind of surprised me that with Warner Robins and known as an international city, had very few racial problems as I know of, but yet we've never had an African American football coach no one plays football. Oh, but you finally have the first one. And I was kind of, and I'm sure that's a sense of pride for everyone. But as Warner Robins finally, not finally, because you've been an international city, was that just and I don't want to get into, you're running for mayor, you're not running for the Board of Education, but how did that strike you?
Well, I didn't think of it the way that you just put it,
Yeah.
that there hasn't even been an African-American head coach.
Yeah.
Especially for Warner Robins to develop so much talent of individuals that look like you and I.
Yeah.
So yeah, I didn't even think of that. But
Anyway,
yeah.
just a point and a contention, not a point of contention, point I wanted to mention, because you are on the precipice, if you will, of making history. I made history, but you're not in this to make history. You're in it to make a difference. I understand that, and that's why we get into politics. You want to make a difference. So, we don't think about legacies when we first come in. We start thinking about what we're going to do. What size budget do you work with there at Warner Robins? What size is your budget?
Our budget is about $100 million.
And that's all categories, all funds, about $100 million. So you're going to be overseeing a $100 million budget. That's a pretty large corporation.
Yes, sir.
And so if someone would ask, Mrs. Patrick, what gives you the not the audacity, but the experience to manage a $100 million budget?
Well, that's also a really good point, and I've had to explain that many times. And of course, because I look like I'm so young, to many, that's the first question. What were you thinking? So with my experience, of course, I've told you I am an attorney. I currently practice municipal law, but my background is corporate law and government procurement law. So throughout my career, I've managed $100 million worth of contracts at one time. That's managing them, doing the administration, and also the negotiations of them at one time. I've worked for businesses small and large, from $7 million annually up to $650 million annually. I've held positions at high levels in corporations I've worked for, in small businesses, CEO, I'm sorry, not CEO, but COO, Chief Compliance Officer, and also Chief Legal Officer, in-house corporate counsel as well. I have procured over $250 million worth of new business for companies I've worked with over my career. So my experience touches on many things when it comes to managing a business or managing operations. So I'm going to be able to manage our city too. But that's just a little bit of what my experience has prepared me for.
Yeah. And that's to serve you well, being in the corporate world, because you work very, very closely with the private sector when it comes to the 21st century partnership at Robins, where all the private sector comes in, and of course the mayor's always at the apex of all of that. So it should serve you well in that. But let me just put a pin in something you said, that you're young. Remember what Nelson Mandela said: you're never too young, you're never too old to learn, and you're never too young to lead. So you keep that in mind. You're not too young. You
Yes, sir. Thank you.
And coming from someone such as Nelson Mandela, I would say that he knows what he's talking about.
Yes, sir. I would agree.
Yeah. Now, in terms of you got your budget. Now you have to work with the other cities, but what do you call this thing that you all do a lot down there? Expand your city. What do you call it?
The annexation?
Annexation, not consolidation. Annexation. Annexation has always been a big deal of Warner Robins' growth. Do you see your continued growth being through annexation, or just more people moving in to the space that you currently occupy?
Well, we want all of the above, but annexation is something that we're going to have to seriously consider doing. If you look at our city map, and I don't know if Macon Bibb has a map such as ours, but you will see the city limits, and then you will see the county, and then you'll see a little triangle out here, miles down the road, that's city. And then you'll see another rectangle miles down the road going through the county that is city as well. So it's confusing to many the way our map works. So because of development and certain things that were done for the developments, we have a lot of unincorporated islands that we're going to have to talk about how to bring everything into the city limits of course, if the homeowners and the property owners want it. But annexation is something I definitely see that we're going to have to do. Warner Robins is landlocked in a way, and we continue to build out going towards other cities, which I don't have any issues with. But we're going to have to start looking at how are we, Warner Robins, going to be able to sustain ourselves and also grow so we're not being left behind by surrounding cities.
Surrounding cities such as Centerville, otherwise you all city limits, you will be sharing your vision as Warner Robins at one time, at some point in the future, will be sharing a border with Centerville, or do you already share that border?
We already share, we're right here. I actually grew up in, we call it Centerville, where I grew up, where we lived, and I went to middle school and high school. We were annexed. We were actually considered living in the county of Warner Robins, but we were right next door to Centerville. So Centerville actually annexed in the house I grew up in. So they annexed it into Centerville. So that's how close Warner Robins and Centerville's lines are. The same thing with Warner Robins and Perry in some places. One fence will separate them. And then you have Warner Robins, who now has property inside Peach County as well. So we're up against that too.
Yeah. You know, you mentioned how much you support the military, and you told me off camera and background that your father's retired from the military, from the Air Force, so you understand the military, having moved around. But Warner Robins, I said earlier, I mentioned about the economy, but the mayor of Warner Robins is almost, and the base commander out there, joined at the hips, I guess, along with your chairman of your county commission. So that's that triad, the chairman of the county commission, the city of Warner Robins, and the base commander. You all must work in tandem to make sure that the base sustains itself, that you provided services. What do you see the main role of the mayor, other than being a cheerleader for Robins Air Force Base? But what else do you see there?
Well, you bring up some very great points. I can see why you are the great Jack Ellis. And you're making me think of things a little bit differently, which is a great thing, because I can learn a lot from you, watching you and studying you and what you've done in Macon. So for that, yes, all of them need to work together for the good of all of us as a whole. Right now, that's not happening. Everyone kind of operates in their own little lane. But we're supposed to be connecting with each other and working together so that our city can grow as Macon has grown. And there's a lot of growth in Warner Robins, but there are a lot of things that's not happening there. And I think that missing piece of the puzzle, which you just described, can be part of that problem. We're not working together as if we all benefit from each other. And that's what I see we need to do. We need to all come together, and that's what I intend to do as mayor. Have very strong relations with Robins Air Force Base. That's what I intend to do, have very strong relations with Robins Air Force Base. Also work very closely with the county and make sure everybody's on the same page.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people want to move to Warner Robins, and I say that's and I'm not envious of Warner Robins because I'm the former mayor of Macon. I'm a great cheerleader for Macon, but we have to call it like it is. A lot of people want to move to Warner Robins. They say quality of life, better housing stock, but with that comes the price point of homes. I understand, and Warner Robins are beginning to, if you will, become out of reach of a lot of moderate to low income people. So like other cities are having a problem with affordable houses. What do you see in that lane? How are you going to address the affordable houses that people from Warner Robins won't be chased out of Warner Robins because of the affordability of real estate?
Yeah, that's an awesome point. And I am a big advocate for making sure everyone is treated the same. We don't have a strong program for affordable housing in Warner Robins. That's my perspective as a constituent of Warner Robins. But we're going to put emphasis on that if I am elected. We need to make sure that certain areas of town are not neglected any further, because they're being neglected, and there's a big gap between certain areas of town and other areas of town. And I want all of Warner Robins to look like Warner Robins and not just focus on the areas that have the higher property taxes, because in Warner Robins, all of our property taxes are going up next year because the millage rate stayed the same, and the leadership did not elect to provide relief to citizens by rolling it back, which, because prices are inflated because of the market, we're going to be paying higher taxes. Macon, I know they rolled theirs back, I think 8 points
Yeah,
to
well, they
provide
rolled it back
relief.
because they did do an OLOS, though. You know, you haven't.
I know
worked
you
at
all did the OWASH.
Yeah, you haven't worked in the legislature. You know exactly. OLOS, for those we sometimes we throw these slangs around like everyone. The other local option sales tax. Other words, in addition to the 70, another penny. I don't know whether you all do. You have that in
We
Warner Robins now? You don't want to talk about raising taxes. You want to talk about cutting.
Oh yeah, I don't want to raise. I don't want to
Yeah.
raise the taxes.
Yeah.
We already have increased property tax. I mean, we're going to have the increase in property taxes we just mentioned, but we're also having increase in utility rates already. And then we have this $800,000 lien. We got to find the money in the budget somewhere. And then we have the lawsuits, the 15 lawsuits, multi-million dollars worth of lawsuits. So we cannot afford to raise anything in Warner Robins right now. We got to find a way to get through and rebound from the challenges we're currently facing.
You know, you hear a lot about regionalism. I know I did when I was mayor, and I believe in regionalism. Especially, we are all in the Middle Georgia region. Macon was the big thing on the block for a long time, Bibb County, but now Houston County, as I said earlier, according to the 2020 census, has Houston County has bypassed us. But in terms of our airport, I was always an advocate for that airport, even though the city owns it, becoming a regional airport so that we could have everybody involved and maybe grow it. And when it comes to the train coming here, it can't just come to Macon. It's got to come to Middle Georgia. What's your position on regionalism, and how do you see that working?
I mean, I think that's an awesome idea, utilizing that airport for the whole region. I know G-Ramp was something that had been discussed in Warner Robins and Middle Georgia area for some years, and it kind of just went down. Like, you don't hear them mention G-Ramp anymore, and G-Ramp was the program where they were going to have commercial flights be able to land at Robins Air Force Base and at the airport there. So hopefully that gets revived.
You ought to go get back on that. That's
Yeah,
a good
that's
idea.
what we're wanting
That's a
to
very
do.
good idea. Given that runway out there, any plane in the world can land at Robins Air Force Base. The runway is that long.
So that's something we have to have a strong relationship with Robins Air Force Base leadership in order to start having those conversations again. So I definitely am an advocate of that. And I also like the Macon Regional Airport because I have taken Contour up to Baltimore, Maryland a few times. My husband's from Baltimore, Maryland, born and raised inner city. So I enjoy that flight and having the accessibility. I enjoy the airport. It's almost like you're well, I don't want to say almost. I feel like I'm a celebrity when I ride and out of the Macon Regional Airport because you don't have to do the long waits, you don't have to go through the long security lines, and it's almost like you're on a private plane.
I take it all the time. And
yeah, I love it.
That airport was renovated under my administration.
Well, thank you for your service.
But this is not about me. This is all about you and Warner Robins, and so goes Warner Robins, so goes Middle Georgia. You know, we understand that Robins Air Force Base. If we would take Robins Air Force Base out of Middle Georgia, we all would suffer. Not just Warner Robins, we all suffer. So we're all on your team, if you will, when it comes to doing whatever we can to make sure that that base is protected at all costs. But given that, you're nonpartisan. This race is nonpartisan. If you want to declare whether you're Republican or Democrat, that's okay. That's not what this program is about. But you have to work with a Republican legislature. All Republican. I'm sure all of your legislature, you work there, and so you understand how that works, the sausage making, if you will. Do you have a good relationship? Do you see having to improve that relationship, to work with your delegation to get things done, like you were saying about the annexation and everything else that you have to do? What's your relationship with your legislative delegation?
Well, the legislators of Warner Robins, I don't see them often, but I did see a couple of them at a veterans event just passed. And one of them is very, very kind, and I know I can work very well with him. There is another, which he just doesn't seem too inviting of the fact of how I,
But
of
you are
me.
open and receptive to
But
working
I'm
with everyone. That's what I hear you
absolutely-
saying.
I absolutely have to, and that's exactly what I stand
Well, look,
for.
we're fresh out of time, and I've enjoyed our conversation here. The election is on the 30th of November, and Mrs. LaRhonda Patrick for mayor. She's in the runoff with Mayor Toms, the incumbent. So we encourage everyone to go out and vote. I'm not going to tell you who to vote for. She obviously will say vote for her, and Toms will say vote for him. But make sure, whatever you do, go out and vote. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Mayor Ellis. I
And all
appreciate
and all
it.
the best to you.
It's great meeting you.
Good meeting you as well.
Thank you.
And thank you all so much for joining us here on the Middle Georgia Spotlight. Until next week, I'm your host, Jack Ellis. Goodbye. Happy Thanksgiving.